This video is brought to you by Squarespace, the best all-in-one platform for any of your website building needs. Hey guys, it's Celestia, and today I'm going to be talking about something that's been on my mind a lot more lately. And that's why, in my opinion, the art commentary community on YouTube is dying. To be more accurate, actually, why I think it's always been dying and always will be dying, but will never actually die. It's not exactly a fun topic, especially given that I'm an art commentary channel, and while I have my share of problems with the community, I do still love it, even if it's more of a love-hate relationship than anything. I've made my little corner of this community into something like a home, and I don't particularly enjoy coming to the conclusion that that home is made of rotting wood and gradually falling apart a little more every day. It makes me sad, and it's not a topic I take lightly, but it is something that I think it's important to talk about because whether we like it or not, the problems in this community aren't going anywhere. If anything, there's such a permanent fixture within it that they've led to what I see as an endless cycle that's doomed to repeat itself time and time again. But before I get into what I mean by that and why, let me take a moment to thank today's sponsor, Squarespace. Yes, I know I've been rambling about why I love Squarespace for like 2 months now, but it's because they're great, so hear me out. Squarespace is a website building and hosting tool that I've personally been using for a good while now to host my art studio, and in addition to that, I'm also working on switching my main portfolio over there, so I have no shortage of first-hand experience with how versatile and easy to use it is. They offer a ton of different gallery options that are a godsend for artists wanting to display their work, especially in a portfolio format, and the automatic image scaling means you don't have to waste time cropping or resizing any of your work just to make it look good. You can even have password protected galleries too, which means that if you're like me and you have work that's under NDA that you still want to be able to show to potential clients or employers, you can with a private portfolio section. You can also sell your art directly from your Squarespace site by setting up an online store. And since you can sell both digital and physical items, that means that you could do anything from taking commissions to selling your art on merch. No matter what your needs are, their tools and templates will make bringing your vision to life as easy as possible, which means one less barrier between you and sharing your art with the world. Anyway, thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring this video, and please go check out squarespace.com to get a free trial to build your own website, because no matter what your site needs are, they have a template for you. And once you've built it, go to squarespace.com/DuchessCelestia to save 10% on your first website or domain purchase. Now, all that out of the way, let's get into the video. I've spoken about the art commentary community in multiple other videos, linked in both the description and the iCards above, mostly discussing the issues with drama, toxicity, and cancel culture within it, and I think I've made it pretty clear in doing so that I thoroughly recognize that while this community is my home and I love it, it's also pretty shitty sometimes. But it's been a year since I made my last video about it, and in that time, a lot has happened, very little of which was good. And it's made me start thinking hard about what exactly it is about this community that prompts the same problems to happen over and over again. Because it's not like we, as members of that community, are unaware of those problems. We've seen them happen time and time again. We know they're bad and that we should avoid letting them happen time and time again, and yet without fail, they happen anyway. And yes, just like I mentioned in previous videos, this isn't just the case for the art commentary community. It's absolutely an issue that's prevalent throughout commentary as a whole, and I acknowledge that. But you would think that comparatively it would be less of a problem for the art CC because, I mean, commentary's entire basis is effectively the discussion of drama and controversy. At least the art commentary community has something beyond that, at least in theory, that being art, obviously. You'd think that since we have common ground and a shared passion to discuss beyond just who got canceled this month, we would be less inclined to be unnecessarily toxic and cancel people just to have something to talk about. But contrary to that assumption, spending a full month in this community would show you beyond a shadow of a doubt that that's not true. People will try to ruin an artist's life over the most mundane, irrelevant mistakes they've made with the same aggression they'll direct towards other artists who have done actual harm to others. It's something I've already spoken about in those earlier videos. The art commentary community's addiction to drama is far from a new discovery, nor are the litany of issues that result from it, like the tendency for a million channels to make their own videos echoing everything that's already been said just to milk views without bringing any new insights or information to light, or the failure to view those being cancelled as human beings who can be hurt deeply and irreversibly by the cruelty of those defining them by whatever controversy they're involved with, or the preference to see an artist be cancelled rather than given the opportunity to grow and change, or the willingness to throw any of your peers under the bus to avoid being thrown under it yourself, or the likening of personal drama that should be handled privately to deplorable offenses worthy of public scrutiny or denouncement, or a million other examples that I've already talked about and you've already heard about. What surprises me isn't that these issues exist in the community. What surprises me is the fact that last year, when I made those videos discussing them, I had a long list of examples of each problem, and the genuine hope that we could use those examples as a learning experience so that we could finally stop seeing these same things happen to more and more creators within the community. And a year later, that didn't happen. Instead, I have a list of a million more examples of the exact same things happening all over again to new people. Creepshow art being cancelled for gossiping with the same intensity and urgency as she was cancelled for hateful remarks and stalking didn't teach us to hold those things to different levels of accountability. Instead, we've seen an artist cancelled for tracing with more intensity and urgency than an artist who allowed a groomer to stay in their Discord server. Seeing an artist effectively bullied off the platform for unsubstantiated rumors and personal issues didn't teach us to fact-check the information we hear, or be more respectful of mental health problems, or work harder to see creators as human beings. Instead, we've seen mental health problems demonized just as much, if not more. Actual abuse weaponized and reduced to a gotcha moment used to prove points and win arguments. And the definition of trauma and what a person is and isn't allowed to be hurt by on the internet gate-kept and limited rather than expanded and understood. And I'm no longer at a point in running this channel where I'm willing to look at that as the optimist I used to be and think that we'll use those mistakes to improve and stop making them, or recognize where we went wrong in these instances and make change in the way that we handle them in the future. Because quite frankly, I just don't think we will anymore. I can't say that after watching this happen all over again in a million different but somehow identical ways for another year, I really think we're gonna learn to stop it from happening. So why not? Why do we continue to allow this to happen when we're fully aware of the problems that we should be trying to avoid? Why is the art community just one long line of people tripping on banana peels, getting back up, and then walking directly into the next banana peel? Is it really that we don't see it coming, or is it that we don't care? Well, if I can't give a positive take on this, I can at least try to give a constructive one, and in my opinion, that starts with the name itself, art commentary, because none of us really know what that category even means. The most widely accepted definition of the art commentary community is that it's commentary with a speed paint in the background, sometimes but not always relating to art in at least some capacity. But that's not all-encompassing either, because there are also channels that are just a channel's sprites over a static background giving commentary, and those are often also considered to be art commentary channels, likely because of the community's original roots in the DeviantArt ranting community. Many of those rant channels did feature speed paints as well, but it wasn't necessarily a prerequisite so much as the sprites and the commentary. And because the community formed around DeviantArt, the content didn't have to focus so much on art when the culture itself was already so deeply artist-focused by default. But the storytime animation community is also deeply intertwined with the art commentary community, leading many art commentators to adapt their own methods of storytelling from it and integrate their own personal lives and experiences into art commentary by adding story times to the content they create too, myself included. And all of that, despite very little of it actually having to do with art, is regularly categorized as art commentary. Some, myself included, are a little more restrictive in that definition, only considering something to be art commentary if it actually relates to art in some way, even tangentially. For example, I don't consider my storytime videos to be art commentary just because I'm talking over a speed paint, which is why they're in their own separate playlist. Similarly, I don't think that Creepshow Art's later content, which was really just commentary about current events that had nothing to do with art over a speed paint, should have been considered art commentary either, because the commentary had nothing to do with art. To me, that would be the same as saying that commentary channels who show gameplay in the background are gaming channels, because they're not talking about the games, and the focus of their content has nothing to do with gaming beyond showing it as something to look at, while the commentary, the actual basis of the content, is delivered. Some argue that art commentary is therefore just another subcategory of regular commentary, and that the name only refers to the visual content supplied alongside the commentary, and therefore gaming commentary is just another subcategory by extension, which I can understand on a technical level, but I still find myself disagreeing with based on my own personal definition of art commentary as a type of commentary that does itself pertain to art. My point in spending 10 years rambling about the definition of art commentary is that because no one can actually agree on one, the community contains a much wider range of content than one might assume based on the name alone. And as a result, two primary issues occur. One, that the different corners of the community tend to be quite divided and isolated from each other, often with each of these corners looking down on the other corners as petty, childish, drama-riddled, or otherwise lesser, which I don't doubt contributes to the constant willingness to throw others within the community under the bus at the drop of a hat, which is one of those phrases you don't realize you don't actually know the meaning of until you type it into a script and notice that it's fucking weird as hell, but whatever. The second problem, which I think is the main reason the art commentary community is and always will be dying, is that it encourages the gradual but consistent deterioration of content, which is something I didn't have enough experience to understand when I examined these issues last year. Now that I do, at least in my opinion, let me explain what I mean. I don't think I'm the minority when it comes to the belief that art commentary content is content that is related to art. Looking at most channels within the community, you can usually see just from a cursory glance at their videos that the majority of the topics topics they cover do pertain to art in some major way. There might be some outliers here and there, but for the most part, it's not just unrelated commentary over a speed paint, it's usually art-related commentary too. But because that definition is so loose, so long as some of a channel's content is art-related, or the topic is only vaguely art-related, it can be very easy to start straying from art as a topic at all and relying only on the speed paint in the background to keep your content in the category of art commentary. So long as art is there, it's art commentary. So long as the person your drama video is about is an artist, it's art commentary. So long as the controversy you're talking about can be vaguely circled back to as having something to do with art, it's art commentary. And it goes on and on from there. And to be clear, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Channels grow and change, and the type of content they create will inevitably never stay the same forever as a result. And that's not a problem. It's a natural part of both careers and creativity, and I don't mean to denounce that. In fact, it's an aspect of the art commentary community that I actually find quite fascinating and potentially even positive, which I'll get into more later. But my point is that while most art commentary channels start with what I consider to be actual art commentary, that is almost never where they end up. Usually, art commentary channels follow one of four paths. They shift into full-blown commentary or tea, like Creepshow Art or D'Angelo Wallace. They start creating more passion project video essay-esque content like Izzy's I'm never gonna know how to say that name, because their audience is following them more for them now rather than the type of content they make, and they know they have the freedom to make whatever they love now. Or they start dropping the commentary aspect and focusing more or exclusively on the art side with more educational or experimental art content like Lavender Town or Emily Artful. Or finally, they're driven off of the platform by the toxicity and constant drama before they have a chance to explore any of those directions. Like, well, a lot of them. And if I'm not saying that's a bad thing, at least aside from that fourth option there, then how am I justifying using it to explain why the art community is so toxic and prone to repeating its past mistakes? Well, because it basically means that by the time the art commentary community has seen enough of those mistakes happen to learn from them, they've often already moved on to another community, leaving an entirely new generation of art commentary channels to pick up where they left off without the experience or knowledge to not have the whole thing happen again. Like, say 10 channels are involved in a controversy. In a year, after they've learned from that controversy enough to avoid repeating it in the future, half of them have stopped making content because the community drove them away. Half of the remaining half were so burnt out by the whole thing that they decide to shift their content away from commentary altogether, and the other half of the remaining half decide that the drama was so profitable for them that they want to capitalize on it and make that their primary content. That's obviously not what happens every time, and it's certainly not a recipe of the exact number of people going in each different direction, and there are also some channels that do withstand the controversy and stay exactly how they were beforehand. There are also those who usually just stay out of it altogether, like myself, Fiona Paulo, and Mally Malware, for example, which does tend to allow for a longer lifespan of maintaining the original focus on art commentary. But those of us who choose not to get directly involved are also largely inconsequential in relation to those controversies, because whether we've learned from watching past ones or not, our preference to stay out of them means we're pretty much irrelevant to the way that they're handled by the wider community. So us learning and staying in the community doesn't have much bearing on whether or not the past repeats itself. So what this means is effectively that by the time the major participants in one art commentary community drama have learned enough from it to not repeat it, they're no longer a part of the art CC in a way that allows them to utilize that knowledge to prevent the same things from happening in the future. Not that there's a lack of coverage into these situations that people could use to educate themselves on the matter and learn from them without direct experience, but there is definitely something to be said about the degree of understanding gained from actually experiencing something versus watching someone else experience it. This, in my opinion, is why the wider community of viewers in the art community, which is still really the category that I consider myself to fall into too, is constantly left on the sidelines, shocked and appalled that these things continue to happen, while the people responsible for them happening are moving on to different communities or phases of their lives before their new knowledge is able to benefit the community long enough to prevent it. Not that that's their fault. I just think that the very transitional nature of the art commentary community resulting from its wide range of potential definitions does have a very significant impact on the community's tendency to repeat its past mistakes. But let's talk a little more about that very transitional nature, because another reason art commentary channels are so consistently inclined to shift their content into another direction is because of the unique amount of pressure to. Yes, part of that is because the drama gets those sweet, sweet views, but it's more than that. Art commentary, that being tentatively defined for the sake of this video as commentary pertaining to art over art-related visuals, technically appeals to an exceptionally wide range of viewers, because there are a lot of artists out there and there are a lot of aspects of art that are interesting to discuss. But the problem with that is that while the potential viewership for an art commentary channel as a whole is quite large, the potential viewership for each topic they cover is not. For example, after over 80 videos, you guys know that I talk about a wide variety of art-related art-related things. That's presumably why you're here, because as of writing this, almost 40,000 of you have decided that you like hearing about art stuff enough to be willing to hear about it from me, of all people. But because art is such a vague, very widely encompassing topic, that means that while 40,000 of you may be interested enough in the smaller topics it encompasses to subscribe, only a handful of those topics will interest you enough for you to watch those videos. 40,000 of you might be interested in art, but maybe only 1,000 of you will be interested in hearing Artist Alley advice. Only another 10,000 would be interested in a 3-hour deep dive into the value of art school. Only a few thousand might care to click on a video about getting hired in the art industry. Only a few thousand more might care about ideas to get past art block or ways to get more commissions. And when you're a small channel just starting out, that isn't necessarily a problem. Inconsistent views and never knowing when a video is going to tank or do really well can be a little irritating and demoralizing, but it doesn't have any real impact on your life while your channel is just your hobby and not your living. But as an art commentary channel grows and the artist behind it starts trying to make it into a career rather than just a side project, this smaller problem suddenly becomes a much, much bigger one. Because for most channels, the majority of their viewers will be interested in every video they post. True crime fans will probably want to watch every video their favorite true crime channel posts. Reaction channels will have viewers on whatever they're reacting to. Cooking channels viewers will be interested in the majority of their recipes. Makeup enthusiasts will probably check out the majority of a beauty channel's tutorials, and so on. Even art education channels can count on consistent viewership of their content, because their content always still falls under the umbrella of art education, which is what their viewers signed up for and knew to expect. But art commentary? This is a genre of content where I could be talking about the ethics of separating art from artist one week, and talking about why people think furry art is cringe the next week. And that means that my viewers don't really know what to expect from me beyond it falling under the umbrella of being art related. So half the time, the video I post that week might not even appeal to half of the people subscribed to me. There are other areas of content creation on YouTube that also fall victim to this. It's not just art commentary, but it is a huge problem for art commentators, especially when they're trying to make their channel into their job. Because the two major ways to make money from your content on YouTube is through ad revenue and sponsorships, and having wildly inconsistent views has a very real impact on both. If all of the videos you post in a month tank, you're not going to be making shit from ad revenue. And sponsors? They're either not interested at all in channels with inconsistent views and don't offer them sponsorships, or conversely offer to pay them less, or they'll only pay you based on the amount of views the sponsored video gets rather than the number of subscribers you have, because they can't count on the sponsored video getting a consistent number of views based on your subscriber count alone. So either way, your finances are going to suffer if your channel's views are inconsistent, and it's going to make it so much harder to advance your career and grow. And before you say they shouldn't be doing it for the money, just no, shut up. I'm sorry. I'm just so sick of people calling creators money grabbing or selfish because they want to monetize a thing they're pouring their time, money, effort, and passion into. People have a right to want to make money from something they're devoting huge amounts of their life to, especially if they love doing it so much that they want to make it their job. And if you like their content, you should support their right to do so, because they're literally providing it to you for free. My point isn't to demonize creators who are pressured to change their content based on the impact that inconsistent views have on their finances. It's actually to justify and explain why that pressure is so significant that they often feel like they have to. Because you know the one kind of art commentary content that does appeal to the vast majority of an art channel's audience and get consistent views? The controversial kind. The kind you don't have to be interested in a specific aspect of art to find entertaining or interesting enough to click. My viewers don't need to be interested in selling art at conventions to click on a video about DeviantArt or Twitter or TikTok or Clip Studio Paint doing something that the vast majority of artists found infuriating. They don't need to fall into the niche subsection of viewers that cares about how to get an industry art job or the right way to make a portfolio for a concept art position to enjoy a video about a controversial webtoon ad that artists found offensive. That's why my 3-hour video deep diving into the value of art school that took me like 80 hours to make has 15,000 views, and my analysis of why people were mad about the boyfriend's webcomic has almost 300,000. It's not the community's fault either. It just so happens that because art is such a huge, wide-reaching topic, the only things within it that will be consistently interesting to the majority of people who care about it are those that require the fewest prerequisite interests, and that usually means drama. So as a result, we're left with a community that inevitably has to fall back on controversies and tea as the only form of content that provides any kind of consistent engagement, and a tendency for the biggest names involved in controversies to move on to other forms of content or life paths altogether before the downsides of engaging in those controversies can be fully realized by the wider community. And that, in my opinion, is why the art commentary community is and always will be dying, because it will always be doomed to repeat the same cycles of controversy, and the channels who establish themselves here will almost always end up leaving content creation altogether or moving on to another type of content, even if that content is still somewhat related. Because if they grow past the point of talking about anything art related, regardless of how many views it gets, and into the point of needing consistent viewership to maintain their career, a shift in content is effectively their only choice. Art commentary is not a sustainable endgame goal for any channel that wants to pursue content creation professionally, at least not in my opinion, and at least not without shifting their content in one direction or another to improve that sustainability. And in a desperate attempt to make it sustainable anyway, we end up repeating the same mistakes as the channels before us, sacrificing the well-being of others and the content that we ourselves are passionate about just to try to build a house on a crumbling foundation. Now, I realize that that was a lot of really nihilistic, pessimistic, I've given up on good things negativity right there, and that's not the note I want to end on, because like I said earlier, just because I think the art commentary community is and always will be dying, I also think it will never die. And I think that even when it's at its worst as a toxic cesspool of petty drama and controversy, there's still something about it that draws people in as a way to start out and experiment with content creation, even if it's not where they end up staying in the long run. Maybe it's because regardless of our differences, we're all just artists who want to share our creativity, and art commentary has a pretty low barrier of entry in terms of allowing us to do so. And if this community is giving creators a jumping off point to start figuring out how they want to express that creativity and turning it into something that we love making and sharing with others, I think that's an incredibly valuable, beautiful thing. Personally, I don't see myself staying in art commentary forever. My dream would really be to go down the Izzy's route, honestly, and start making video essay deep dives into content that I find interesting, particularly in the art and gaming world. I can't tell you how much happier it would make me to spend hours talking to you guys about Omori, or We Happy Few, or Yume Nikki, or Corpse Party, than whatever bad thing happened in the art commentary community recently. And hopefully that's a transition I'll be able to make someday. And hopefully, if nothing else, the art commentary community will always remain a place where creative people can start their journeys towards finding the content they're most passionate about creating, because there's so much value in that. And obviously, these are just my opinions too. There are probably a million art commentators and viewers that disagree with me and love the community and thoroughly plan to stay a part of it forever. And honestly, that's fantastic. I've always recognized the possibility that I might just be an old jaded grandpa that's too tired of the world and other people to be objective about the positive aspects of the community. In fact, I'm usually leaning towards that as the explanation for my opinions, because it's usually true. So that in mind, take literally everything I've just said with a grain of salt, or like a bottle of salt, really, because it may just be that I happen to be a nihilistic asshole. Wouldn't shock me. I'm just really tired of seeing people in the community get hurt over and over by controversies that we should know how to handle better by now. And I wish things were better. I wish any of us had the power to actually make them better. But unfortunately, we're all just imperfect people dealing with imperfect circumstances imperfectly. And that's just a fact of life that any community is gonna have to deal with. But please let me know what you guys think about this in the comments. Why do you think that the art commentary community is so toxic and turbulent? Why do you think the same mistakes keep being made over and over again? Do you think it's just an inevitability of human nature that will be present in any community, or do you think it's something that we can change and improve on? Do you think the art commentary community is dying, or do you actually find it to be a positive environment where creators and audiences can thrive long term? I have a lot of questions, honestly, because everything I've said here today is really just one big theory on my part, and it's by no means one that I'm sure of, so I'd really like to hear more views on it than just my own. Regardless, thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. Special thank you as always to channel members Cafe Soleil, Joseph Solomon, Unknown Code, Abyss Reborn, and Lotus Dreams Art, as well as patrons Batman, Kyle Lowe, Blue Swanson, This Is Totally My Name, Unity, Cora Fear, Jamisha Walker, Shirome Artiste, Elengshi, Soul Crystal, Kim Yen, Stony Cobra 13, Shamil Sheep, and Crazy Hassar for their support, and I'll see you in the next one.